Hello. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so let's quickly recap what we have learned in the last lecture. Can you just list down the topics that we have learned in the last lecture? You can type in the topic in the chat box. I hope that I am audible to you. Okay, service creation that we have seen. For that employee service that we created. Anything else? Right, observables. What is the use of the observable? Why do we use observable? For which kind of model we use this type observable? Okay, to fetch the data from the server, which API we use to fetch the data from the server, or which package or which class we use to fetch the data from the server? In Angular, we have used a particular, yes, it is HTTP client, right? We have used this class to issue the HTTP request, correct? Okay, yes, the model that we use is pub sub model, publish subscribe model, in which the client can subscribe from the publisher. So using observable, basically it's a design pattern. Sometimes the design pattern is also known as observable pattern, in which there is an observable which plays the role of publisher, and there is an observer or multiple observers who plays the role of subscribers, right? And in general, we can have multiple publishers also. So it is, we are not limited to have only one publisher, but different publisher for publishing different things, or different publishers publishing the same thing. And we have the client classes which subscribe to the publisher. So using observable, we use this to subscribe to some data or stream of data or even anything else, any kind of data. We can have any kind of data source which returns some data. So we use this observable and HTTP client to issue the HTTP request, and we subscribes to the data, employee data. And employee data, we kept it very simple: employee ID, name, and designation. And what we did, we created a separate service, employee service, which will return this data. First, what we did, we created the service which returned the static data. Then we altered the service to return the dynamic data, but this time the data is coming from the server. So we place this employee data on the server. We created a employee.json file in which we created a static list of employee records, and using the client or observer, we are issuing the HTTP request via the instance of the HTTP client, right? So using HTTP client instance, you can issue the different kind of HTTP request like get, post, put, delete, patch, and so forth. And it will return the data, and this data we can display, render it on our browser screen. And this employee service can be used by any of the component. So we can inject the services in different way at the module level, at the component level, or at the root level. And we can create and we can inject it within the constructor, and we can get the hold of the instance reference to the service, and we can issue this request. So basically, a component will become the observer, and employee service will become the observable, right? Which is fetching the data from the server. So right now we have not created the server API, or we have not written any server code, server script. So for that, we simply store this data into the JSON file, and this static data is coming from the server, and client is able to use them. Okay, so this was the important part, and later on we can replace this server, this static data with the server API, which returns this data, this employee records, maybe in form of JSON records or XML records, or even in text format or in CSV format. We can fetch the data, and on the client side, it can display the data onto the browser screen. Now we'll move on to one more important topic in the Angular. The main purpose of the Angular, one of the main purpose is to develop the single page application. So what happens in single page application, that the user can move from one view to another. So let us see the example, and it will become more clear. Let me share my screen. Okay, is my slide visible to you? Okay. So today we are going to see this routing and navigation in our web app. Normally, any application will require moving from one page to another. And what you did in other subject, like we can redirect URL. Basically, we are moving from one page to another. We use the concept of redirection. So what will happen? The current web page will be, the browser will replace the current web page with the another web page from the server. So that is called navigation. So Angular supports this routing facility so that we can move from one page to another. Okay, we'll come to the technicalities, but let me give you this example. So suppose I want to develop this routing application in which we have two link, or we can have two menu or two sub menu like employee detail and department details, or two buttons. If I click on them, suppose I click on employee details, on the main content should be replaced by the all the employee records. And if I click on the department details, that main content should be replaced by the all the department details. So here we can have a button, or we can also render the link using as a button by simply changing the CSS style. It will look like a button, but internally it may be the anchor link. So that is our goal. So here what happens, without reloading a new page or redirecting to a new page, the existing view should change. So you can, web page can be divided into say two sections. The upper section will contain the menu, and the lower one section will refer to the content section. So this content section is dynamic. And based on the selected thing, whether it is employee detail or department detail, the main content section will show the employee records or department records. So that is my goal. And in single page application, this works without redirecting to another page. Is it clear what is SPA, single page application? How does it works? Here, another thing you will note down with the single page application is whenever this view is changed from one view to another, the URL will also get changed. For example, in Gmail, if you have the inbox, so that maybe you can specify the particular page number along with, within the URL, and you can directly jump to a specific page on which you will see the multiple emails. Okay, so suppose you have 1,000 emails. So if I want to see first 50 emails, so at a time you can see say 50 emails on your screen. So if I want to jump to the second page containing the next 50 emails, then I can simply jump to that particular page by changing the URLs also, or clicking on the next page, or through the pagination link, you can also jump to the particular page. Right, so the single page application works this way. So this is our objective. So internally what happens, basically the browser is hiding the employee details and it is overwriting with the department details. And similarly, if you want to switching from department details to employee details, the department details are hidden and then employee details are shown. And as you know, basically internally it is nothing but DOM tree. So it's a matter of manipulating the DOM tree. Is it clear? What is going on behind the scene? That is for us technically, and what is a user sees is simply looking at the current view. And in this particular example, the main content view will come from one of the component. And these two links like employee details and department details link are maybe static link, and the bottom, the main content is dynamic. Is it clear? Any doubt so far? We have two static link, anchor link, and there is a content. This content is dynamic. We'll see how to make it dynamic. If you are putting any, if you are referring to any components selector, then we'll get the view of that component only. But if I want to switch from that component's view to another component view, we need to resort to the feature called routing in Angular. Is it clear conceptually or not? In front of you, there is a screen in which we have two links, employee details, department details. Those are static anchor link. And here on the bottom, we can have employee records or department records. But if we put only one component selector, we will see at a time only one component view. But if I want to switch from one component's view to another component's view, I must use the routing features available in the Angular. Okay. Okay, there are two ways to use this routing feature in the Angular. While you create a new project, you can use this switch routing, and then it will create the corresponding routing module, and you can use that routing module within your project. So this is if you created if you are starting with a fresh project, and then if you want to use it, then you can use this switch while creating a new Angular project. But suppose I have not created a new app without using this switch, then there is also a way to use that routing module. So we'll use the second way to manually use this routing module in our project, in which we have not specified this particular command line parameter while creating a new project. So basically there are two ways. So it will automatically generate the routing modules and related template, which you can use in your project. But suppose you have not used this flag at the while creation of a project, still it is possible to use the routing feature. So let's start with suppose the projects exist in which we want to use the routing feature. So first we have to change this index.html file. You have to add this particular element that base and with the attribute href equal to slash. So that shows that this routing module or routing feature will start with the root of your project. Basically, our root folder of the project is source. So within source, there is an app folder. Okay, within source, there is an app folder. So it is considered to be the root folder of the project. Sometimes we also call it as the app root. Okay, we also call it as the app root. So because it deals, this routing deals with the URL also. If we change the URL, your view will change. Okay, so there are two ways. Either you can directly change the URL or you follow it via some existing link. Okay, so there are two ways to change the view. Either you follow the link and the view will change, or secondly, you can directly change the URL. And sometimes you will also see that if the URL is malformed, it will show that 404 page not found error, right? So we'll also see that how to show that error page in case of in case the user is entering the wrong URL. Now, as per our this application, what we require, two pages, two components. One for showing the employee details and second is displaying the department details. So next step is to create two components. One is employee component, which will display the employee records, and second component is department details, which will show the department details. So again, we can use the Angular CLI commands, ng generate component, employees and departments, and there are some additional flag in case if you want to start with the inline template or inline styles. And there is also one more flag, skip test, in which case if it is true, then it will not generate the unit test file. So it will avoid the .spec file. In that case, if you want to create this file manually, then you can use this command line flag skip test. So again, this is just for your information. It is not mandatory. You can also do it manually also. Now, to use the routing feature, you have to create the routing module. So by convention, the name of the routing module is normally app routing. And you can also give another name if you want to use. But to easily identify the routing features or different kinds of routes available in your project, normally we give the name to be the app routing module. So we will create our own app routing module. So again, the command is ng generate module. So now see that we are creating modules. So far we have created only components, directives, pipes. Now we are going to see how to create our own module. The command is simple, ng generate module, the name of the module, and there are additional command line flags. For example, the first command line flag is flat. Flat means it will put the created module within the source app folder. Otherwise, as we know, for each component, it creates a separate folder, and within that separate folder, it creates 4 files. The component TypeScript file, then we have the HTML, CSS, and spec file. But if you want to put all those things within the source app folder itself, then you can use the command line flag flat. Secondly, if I want to register my module within my app module, then we can specify the command line flag module. Module equal to app. So basically this new module will be registered in the import array of the app module. Okay, so Angular refers to the module as app. We need not write app module. See the syntax. Syntax is only module equal to app. Okay. And again, if you forget to write down this command line flag, then you can manually, you need to write down the name of the module within the imports array of the app module. So don't worry if you forget this command line flag. Now this is our app routing module. For that, what we require, because this routing module will know how to how to switch from one view to another, and for every view, what are the components related, okay, corresponding components. So this routing, our app routing module is referring to employee component, departments component, and additionally, it will require the use of router module and routes. Okay, so in the import section, this has been highlighted in the yellow color. Okay, what thing we are going to need in our routing features. So basically, this app routing module is nothing but a TypeScript class, but we have to decorate it with the ng module, @ng module. Okay, now is my screen visible to you? It was temporarily disconnection from the internet due to a technical glitch. Okay, fine, thank you. So we are talking about this routing module. By convention, we give the name of the routing module to be the app routing. But if you wish, you can give another name also. So for every routing module should define the different kinds of routes. So here, routes is an array of different route. So it's you can see that it's an array of JavaScript object with two property, path and component. So path will define employees and component will define which components view should be rendered when the path is employees. So normally URL, you can see that URL begins with the scheme, that is HTTP or HTTPS or FTP, followed by double colon slash HTTP colon double slash, then followed by the domain name, then we have the port number, and then we have the query string parameters, or usually we call it as a path. So remember, when we are referring here in the Angular path, it refers to that remaining path name. So suppose we have our university website ddu.ac.in, and after that what comes, we normally call it as the path. So after that, suppose it is employees, then it will render the employees component view. After suppose ddu.ac.in / departments, then it will render the departments components view. So defining path is very easy. And within the ng module decorator, we are defining the imports and exports. So within the imports, we have to use this router module, a static method for root. We pass the reference to the root array. Okay, so it has been highlighted in red color. It is roots. So any question in understanding this different root? The two important component of the root is the path name and the component. So there are two important property: path and component. So if your URL is /employees, it will be employee component, and if your URL is points to department /department, the department components view will be rendered. Okay, the question is, what is the use of exports? So in module, as we have seen in TypeScript, you can create module, and within module you can define functions, classes, or constants. If you want to export those to some another file, we were using export. So here for Angular module also, if you want to use this router module, if you want to use this router module in another module, export section is there. So we have imported this router module, and we are defining our own routes, and this the router module we are also exporting. Okay, the question is .for root method is connect with root. So root /employee get this component, right? Basically, for root is a static method to define our roots. And earlier, in the earlier slide, in the index.html file, we have defined, okay, let me go to that slide. We have defined href equal to / base space href equal to /. So this basically this highlighted line will define that our routing begins with the root. Okay, so it will not consider the domain name, port number into consideration. Okay, it will ignore that. So basically our path name begins with /. So suppose our website is dedu.ac.in. Okay, www.dedu.ac.in /. So this is / refers to that root. Okay, so for our routing, we have defined our routes, because right now we have only two components. To make the example simple, basically we want to switch from one view to another. So this is what we want to do. Like I was telling you that app module should refer to the routing module. Okay, so add the name of the routing module within the imports property of the ng module. It has been highlighted in yellow color, and additionally, whenever we are creating any component, it should be added in the declarations section of the ng module. It will be automatically added by the Angular CLI utility whenever you are creating any component, and whenever you are creating any module, you have to do it manually, or you have to use the command line flag. Okay, so just for your again, make sure that this line is present, or this app routing module that you created is imported in the app module, so that it can be accessible through any of your component. Okay, so make sure that it is there. By default, it will be added if you use the flag. If you don't use the flag, it will not be added. Then you have to add it manually. So it's not a big task. Simply add this name of the module within the import section of the ng module. Now we have app component. This is the view of the app component. So basically app component.html file. So there are two anchor link, and two anchor link refers to the name, employee details, and department details. And there are two properties. One property binding that we have used is router link. Another is router link active. Now router link is obvious. What does it refer to? Router link does not refer to component, but it refers to the URL. What is the current URL? Okay, router link refers to the current URL. Suppose it is ddu.ac.in/employees. Okay, so or whether ddu.ac.in/department. So that you can define, or /employees/1/employees/2, something kind of thing. Or even you can have query string parameter. So right now we are not expecting any query string parameter. If you wish, you can also pass in the query string parameter, which could be static or it can be dynamic. And secondly, we are adding this router outlet within our this app components view. So this router outlet would be replaced by the view of the respective component, whether employee or department. So if the user clicks on employee details, this router outlet selector will be replaced by the view of the employee component. And if the user clicks on the department's details, then it will be replaced by the view of the department's component. So ultimately what happens, whether it is manually or through by clicking on the link, actually we are changing the URL. And that's why in most of it is referred to as routing. Whenever you are changing the URL, basically you are changing the routes, and based on that route, your view will change. Any doubt in router link? Okay. Second is router link active. So suppose I want to, as you know, most of the anchor link, if you click, the color will change. So user can easily identify that this this link is already selected. So, or otherwise you can also apply the different CSS styles by applying the different CSS class. So this use of the second attribute like router link active, you can specify the CSS class name. Suppose the CSS class name is active. So whenever that employee link, anchor link will be clicked by the user, this CSS class with the name active will be added. Otherwise it will be, if user is clicking on another link, that class will be removed. Okay. So the important part in this basically this app component view is only router link, because through the router link the URL will change, and if the URL will change, automatically this router outlet will change. So here you can see that router outlet will be at runtime, it will be replaced by the view of the respective component, whether it be employee component or departments component. Okay, there are a few more example in this slide, but right now I am skipping that part. Later on you can see for more detailed explanation. For right now, I want to keep the same example simple enough. And okay, let's talk more about this basically root. But before that, let's go through the examples. Okay, meanwhile the code is running, let's move on to the more explanation of this path. So again, see that we have modified the roots. We added two more entries within this root array. First entry, I think you can try to understand from the path property set to empty string, redirect to employees. So what does it mean? I think it is self-explanatory. The first line within this roots array. Okay, can anyone answer this? The first line refers to what? Yes, so if there is nothing after slash, then by default it will be redirected to the employees view. Okay, so that means by default it will be redirected to employee details. Okay, and there is one more property, path match equal to full. That means the full path after the domain name. So after slash, whatever it is, it will try to match with it full. Okay, there is one more entry, path equal to double asterisk. Okay, double star. So double star means if the URL is anything other than empty, employees, or department, then the fourth entry into the roots array will match. So it will be redirected to some default page. Okay. So usually it is meant for displaying to the user the page not found error message. And these roots are evaluated from top to bottom, from first to last. So first it will try to match the URL with the empty URL. So suppose it is dedu.ac.in slash, nothing else after slash. Then employees path, employees component view will be displayed. If it is dedu.ac.in slash employees, then employee components view will be displayed. If it is slash department, then department details will be there. Otherwise, it will be by default the whatever the default page components will be rendered on the screen. And that's why you can see the comment that double asterisk should be the last one. Okay, the double star should be the last one. If you put it at the first, what will happen? Correct. It is always redirected to the default page. Okay, because it will try to match it with this first entry will always match. Okay. Okay. Meanwhile, our Okay, project is ready. Let me. Okay, so we have this routing app ready. We have these two link, employee and department. Let me show you the code. Is not employee routing. Okay, this is the code. Okay. This is the router link employees. This is the router link department. So there are basically two links. Okay, and you can see the router outlet. Hope that it is readable. Okay, this will display this these two anchor link. So suppose and initially you can see there is nothing being displayed. Okay, because user has not clicked I have not clicked on either employee or department. So if I click on employee, okay, it is not working. Why? We have not defined, or let me see that it is pointing to the correct component and its view is also defined. So do we have the employees component and department component in our project? Employees component and department components. Okay, right now we do not have. So let me create the one. And let me see that whether it is path are defined or not within the routing module. So see, you can see that app routing module is there. It has been imported into the app module. And we have to see the app routing module. Yes, it is here. And the path are okay. I have commented out the path and that's why it is not working. Okay. To see the path. Okay, first let me uncomment these two path, employees and okay, department. And if it doesn't match, it should be default page. Okay, and AMP's component. Okay, so the name is different, but they are there. AMP's component. Okay, AMP's, it is there. Okay, fine. Let me save this and it should work now. Okay. So see that page not found error comes because currently you can see the URL. It is only, there is nothing after domain name and port. Okay, it is equivalent to slash. Is it clear? I think. And if I click on employee, see that employee details is coming. If I click on department, currently I'm displaying only this message department component. So now see there are two different component, employee component and department component, and it is there. Okay, let me show you the code for the employee component and the department component. So here it is, yeah, this is the employee component. And within the employee component, the first header is H2 header is employee component, as you can see from the screen. Okay, this is employees component. Secondly, what you can see, there is also a child component, emp master. Okay, so this basically this is emp details is coming from the our another component, emp master. Okay, so first it will display the caption employees component, followed by the view of the this component emp master. And this amp master has all these employee details. And this amp master we already seen. Okay, we already developed this part. This part we already developed, right? Any doubt so far? Just let me know. This is the employee master. This component we already developed to display the employee records, which are coming from the employee service. And this employee service is issuing the HTTP request from the server, and it is getting the employee records. And if you wish to see the department also, so there must be which one? Let me see the name. The name is departments component. Yeah, it's here. So department component. Okay, so yeah. Okay. Okay, within not within this H2. So you can see that here we have just this is again you can look at the URL. Is the URL readable? I don't know what is seen on your screen. / departments. Is the URL readable? / departments, and if you click on this employee, you can see the URL gets changed to / employees. So either you can do it manually, or by clicking on the link, the URL will get changed. Whenever the URL will change, the routing module will change the router outlet. It will replace the router outlet with the view of the respective component. So based on your path that you define in the routes array, accordingly, this will change. Okay, any doubt so far? How it is working? It is very simple. Create the different components, and you can simply define the route array, define the path based on your URL. You define the corresponding component name. So only thing is to use this defining the routes in the routing module, okay, and using it. Okay, so this is the important thing that you need to make change. Create a routing module, define the routes, define the path and corresponding component name, and statically you define statically you can say that this is now my new array of routes. Okay, and you can use it in your component, any of the component. You can use the router link, provide the URL. So basically it is changing the URL, and whenever the URL gets changed, this router outlet selector will be replaced by the corresponding view. We know that we can use the component selector. So here basically it is a component. So internally it is a component. Okay, whose view is dynamically being changed according to the change in the URL. So this is a feature available in the Angular. You can navigate from one page to another, but we are not redirected to another page. our current page will not be replaced by another page, but only the part of your page will change. Okay, so that is the main feature of the single page application. Then further you can define the add multiple routes. You can define the default route. For example, here suppose I have some spelling mistake, then it would be page not found here. You can see that if there is a, if you write down say ABC, then again it will move on to the page not found. Otherwise, you can directly click on the particular link and the view will change. Okay. Further in, suppose if I click on particular employee record, suppose I click on the third employee record. So suppose I want to view the more details of particular employee, then I need to use the query string parameter. So I need to pass in that I want to view only the employee record of the employee with the ID 3. So suppose I click on this, then I should be redirected to the, or the view should change to the displaying the more details of that particular employee only. So that is also possible. Okay, so we have to use the query string parameter. As usual, we should pass the ID of the employee and another component which gets this ID, and it will display the details of that employee. Okay, because this is not the practically we cannot show the employee details of the entire organization. So either will require pagination, or we should have the feature of searching the record or getting the details of particular employee only. Okay, so that is also possible. Instead of displaying everything or all the records on the one page, we should be able to view the record of particular employee only. Okay, that is called root parameter. So for that we create another component with the name employee details. Okay, and now we will modify the root we'll add one more path which has been highlighted specially. The new path is employee / ID. So after employees, if I provide the ID of the employee, I should get the detailed record of that particular employee only. So what you need to modify now, we can add the one more path within our root array. Okay, one more path within our root array. So you can see the path is pointing to employee / ID. So you can see that if I don't write colon, then it will be a static name, employee / ID. But colon ID means it is dynamic. This ID is dynamic. This ID will match with whatever you pass. Suppose after employees, if I pass 1, then ID will be 1. If employee /2, ID will be 2. If it is employee /3, ID will be 3. So this colon ID is a placeholder for the ID. Okay, and this ID we can get in our component. I think we'll discuss this in the next lecture, because only 3-4 more slides are there, but we do not have sufficient time. This example we'll see in the next lecture.